It all started as just another day at school. The choir room buzzed with chatter, students flipping through sheet music, some nervously practicing their parts under their breath. At the front of the room stood the teacher, well known for being strict but fair and for pushing students past their limits. Today's lesson was about stepping up, taking a solo, and proving yourself. That's when her eyes landed on someone quiet, someone who always kept to the back, never raising her, and never seeking the spotlight. She pointed directly at her. "You, take the solo." The room fell silent. Everyone turned to look at the soft-spoken woman in the second row. Her name was Mia. No one really knew much about her. She always came early, stayed late, helped others tune their voices, but never sang more than she needed to. Some even thought she was too shy to perform. So when the teacher called her out, most people thought it was a challenge, maybe even a little unfair. They expected a stumble, maybe a few notes, and then a red-faced retreat. But Mia simply stood, walked to the front and took a breath. What the teacher didn't know, what no one in that room realized, was that Mia wasn't just a quiet student. She had a past, one she had carefully kept hidden. Before this classroom, before this school, Mia had lived another life, a life filled with grand theaters, elegant gowns, and audiences that held their breath as she sang. But she had left that world behind for reasons she never shared. Now, with everyone watching, wondering, maybe even doubting her, Mia opened her mouth to sing. And in that moment, everything changed. But what exactly did she sing? And how did the teacher react when the truth finally came to light? You're not going to believe what happened next. Stick around. You won't want to miss it. The first note that came out of Mia's mouth didn't just surprise the room, it stunned it. Pure, powerful, and haunting, her voice filled the space like nothing anyone had ever heard in that school. It wasn't just good, it was professional, trained. Her tone carried emotion like she had lived the music, like the story of the opera was her own. The students sat frozen, jaws slightly open, eyes wide. The teacher, who had expected a timid attempt at a high note, stood still, arms crossed but face slowly softening with disbelief. But Mia wasn't showing off. She didn't add any extra flair or dramatics. She just sang, controlled and calm, as if she'd been waiting for this moment, not to prove anything, but to finally let something out that had been locked inside. And yet, even as she sang, questions filled the room. Who was she really? Why had she kept this gift hidden? How could someone so talented be so invisible for so long? The truth was, Mia had once been known on stages far bigger than this one. Years ago, she had performed under a different name, rising in the world of opera with performances in Europe and North America. Critics called her a voice from another time. But then, just as quickly as she had appeared, she vanished. No public scandal, no headlines, just silence. Some say she walked away from fame on purpose. Others whisper that something happened, something personal. Mia never talked about it. She moved cities, changed her name, and started over. Teaching assistant by day, helping in a high school choir by choice. It was a quiet life, and she liked it that way, until now. Now the teacher who had unknowingly challenged her stood face to face with a mystery. The students were buzzing with theories, and Mia, with all eyes finally on her, simply returned to her seat as if nothing had happened. But the silence after her song was louder than the applause could ever be, and the question still hung in the air. Why had she hidden her voice for so long? After that day, nothing was the same in the choir room. Whispers followed Mia everywhere she went. Some students were in awe, replaying the performance in their heads, trying to figure out how someone like her ended up here. Others weren't, so impressed, not because of her voice, but because they felt deceived. One student in particular, Kara, had always dreamed of being the school's star vocalist. She had worked hard for years, taken every solo, led rehearsals when the teacher was out. Now, suddenly, someone she barely noticed was being talked about like a legend. The teacher, Ms. Rivera, was rattled too. At first, she didn't say much. But there was a quiet shift in how she looked at Mia. During rehearsals, her eyes followed Mia more closely. She started assigning more challenging pieces and often asked for Mia's input on harmonies, something she'd never done with a student before. It wasn't clear whether she was impressed or threatened, or maybe both. Behind the scenes, Mia tried to keep her head down. She avoided questions, brushed off compliments, and stayed after class to help the younger students. But the tension kept growing. One afternoon, Kara confronted her in the hallway. "Why are you even here?" she asked. "You've already had your moment. Why take ours?" Mia didn't get angry. She just looked at her for a second and said, "I'm not here to take anything. I'm here because this is where I found peace." But peace was hard to hold on to now. Rumors started to spread, some true, most made up. A few students started digging online, trying to find clues about Mia's past. Pieces of it started surfacing. Old performance videos, articles, a faded poster with her face on it. The school's music department even got an anonymous tip, someone suggesting Mia should be featured in the upcoming showcase. But with all this rising pressure, one thing was clear: the secret was slipping. And for Mia, that meant facing the very world she had walked away from. The question wasn't just who she used to be, it was whether she could stay in hiding much longer. And whether she even wanted to. The days leading up to the school's spring showcase felt heavier than usual. Posters were taped to every wall, students rushed between rehearsals, and the energy buzzed with a mix of nerves and excitement. But, underneath it all, there was something else, something tense, unspoken. Everyone was waiting to see what Mia would do. The teacher, Ms. Rivera, had officially asked Mia to perform a solo. It wasn't just any song, it was the final number, the one that traditionally closed the night, a dramatic opera piece that required both power and control. A role meant for a seasoned voice. Everyone knew she was the obvious choice. But Mia didn't give an answer. Not right away. Behind the scenes, the pressure was closing in from all sides. Students who once ignored her now acted overly friendly, asking questions about her past or casually hinting at collaborations. Kara, on the other hand, had gone quiet, but the looks she gave Mia in rehearsal said enough. She wasn't happy being pushed to the background, and the showcase was her last chance to reclaim the spotlight. Even Ms. Rivera seemed torn. On the surface, she was supportive, praising Mia's technique, encouraging her to lead warm-ups. But there was something guarded in her tone, almost like she was trying to stay in control of a situation that had already outgrown her. Maybe she felt she'd lit a fire she couldn't contain, and then came the day the rumor became fact. Someone had emailed a video to the entire music department, a grainy clip of Mia performing on a massive stage in Italy years ago. The voice was unmistakable. The audience had been on its feet. That same name appeared in the video's title, the one Mia had worked so hard to leave behind. Now everyone knew. That afternoon, Mia didn't show up to rehearsal. Ms. Rivera avoided questions. Kara smiled, like she knew something no one else did. And the showcase was just 3 days away. No one knew if Mia would sing. But they all knew one thing. The moment she stepped on that stage, or chose not to, everything would change. The day before the showcase, the school auditorium echoed with emptiness. Rehearsals had ended early. Ms. Rivera paced quietly behind the curtains, her brow furrowed deeper than usual. No one had heard from Mia since the video surfaced. Her seat in the rehearsal room stayed empty. Her name was still printed on the program, slotted as the final performer. But no one really believed she would show. Then, just before the last bell rang, another rumor started to spread. But this one hit harder. A former opera agent had been spotted on campus. Word was he had come not for a school visit, but for Mia. Someone, maybe Ms. Rivera, maybe a student, had tipped him off. The rumor picked up speed. Students whispered about record deals, second chances, and stolen futures. Some said the agent had offered Mia a new contract. Others said he'd come to drag her back into the world she tried to leave behind. But no one knew for sure, because Mia still wasn't talking. That night, Kara posted a cryptic video online, just her voice singing the exact opera piece Mia was supposed to perform. It was clearly a challenge, and maybe even a warning. The caption read, "If someone won't step up, someone else will." The post blew up overnight. Students, teachers, even alumni began weighing in. The pressure wasn't just on Mia anymore. It was on the whole performance. The next morning, Ms. Rivera made an announcement. Mia's solo spot would remain open until the moment the curtain rose. If she showed up, she would sing. If not, Kara would take her place. Meanwhile, Mia sat alone in an old practice room few people used. Sheet music lay untouched beside her. The offer from the agent was real. So was the past she'd tried to bury. But something else was clawing at her now. The realization that no matter how far she ran, her voice, her talent, her story, it never really left her. As the clock ticked down to showtime, the tension reached a breaking point. The audience would be arriving in hours. Backstage was electric with nerves. And somewhere inside that school, a decision was being made that would change everything. Lights dimmed, and the curtain rose. The showcase had begun. One by one, students took the stage, each performance drawing polite applause. Backstage, nerves were thick. Kara stood by in full costume, voice warmed up, eyes locked on the program, in her hand. Her name had been penciled in beside the final number, but no one knew if that would hold. Ms. Rivera paced quietly, glancing toward the back exit every few minutes, waiting for a sign that never came. Then, just as the final act was about to begin, the stage manager rushed in, breathless. "She's here!" Gasps passed through the wings like electricity. Mia had entered the building. Kara's expression froze. Ms. Rivera's eyes narrowed slightly, trying to keep her cool. But when Mia stepped into the light, all the noise seemed to fade. Dressed simply, no makeup, no showy presence, just her. And a small folded piece of sheet music in hand. She said nothing. She didn't need to. Everyone moved aside. The MC announced the final performance, Mia's name. Not the one from the posters or the old opera stages. Her real name. The one she'd chosen for this quiet life. The auditorium went completely silent as she walked to the center of the stage. No orchestra, no backing track, just her voice. And when she began to sing, time seemed to stop. This wasn't the same voice from the rehearsal room. It was deeper, more raw. Every note carried pain and power and something else, freedom. She wasn't just performing, she was letting go. Letting go of fear, of the past, of hiding. The room erupted when she finished. A full standing ovation. Even Kara couldn't hide her awe. But before the applause faded, Mia stepped back to the mic. "I appreciate the support," she said quietly. "But I won't be signing anything, not going back. This," she gestured, "to the students, the school, is where I belong." The audience applauded again, softer this time, more heartfelt. But just as she turned to leave the stage, Ms. Rivera stood and called out, "Wait." Everyone fell silent again. "You won't. Go back to that world," she said. "But what if we brought some of it here?" That moment marked the twist no one saw coming. Ms. Rivera offered Mia a permanent spot, not as a student, but as co-director of the school's music program. From a hidden past to a powerful present, Mia hadn't just returned. She had transformed. everything. The weeks after the showcase felt like a new beginning for everyone. The energy in the choir room had shifted, warmer, more focused, and strangely, more honest. Mia had accepted Ms. Rivera's offer, not out of ambition, but because she finally saw a way to use her gift without losing herself. She became a quiet mentor, guiding students not just in singing technique, but in confidence, storytelling, and finding their voice. Cara, to her credit, took it all in stride. At first, she kept her distance, still nursing her bruised pride. But one afternoon, after class, she approached Mia and simply said, "I was wrong, and I'd like to learn from you." It wasn't easy for her, but it was real. And Mia welcomed her with a smile, as if the rivalry had never happened. Even Ms. Rivera seemed changed. She stopped trying to control every part of rehearsal and began inviting students to take creative risks. It was clear that having Mia there had reminded her of why she taught music in the first place, not to mold perfect singers, but to uncover something honest in every voice. As for the students, the story of the humble woman with the opera voice became school legend. But over time, the mystery faded, and Mia became less of a myth and more of a guide. A real person with a real past who had chosen to live fully in the present. The agent who had shown up never came back. Mia never returned his calls. She didn't need to. She had made her choice. In the end, Mia's story wasn't just about a hidden star stepping into the light. It was about finding your place, not in applause or headlines, but in purpose. Her journey taught everyone around her that talent means little without truth, and that sometimes walking away from the stage is exactly what leads you to the right one. And so, the quiet woman who once sat in the back row became the voice that helped others rise, not by shining above them, but by standing beside them.